as a model maker, finding the right brand of paint can be an expensive trial. You're going to hear all the names like Tamiya, Humbrol, Revell, Extra Acrylic, and it can be hard to know which paint is best. And today I'm trying a brand that I've never used before because they've literally only just released. But I figured rather than, just painting a random object, decided I'd just go straight in with a model. And I've got some thoughts. Now, this video is going to form a part of a larger video project on the Red Arrows and the model kits that are available for them. But today we're just going to be looking at one kit, and that's the Matchbox kit. Because this forms part of a larger video, we're just going to go pretty much straight into the unboxing and assembly of this kit. But I did mention at the start of this video that there's something about paints here. Now, Gaahleri, who everyone has known as like a disruptor to the market for airbrushes, has released its own paint range. And well, I'm lucky enough that I'm at the point where I get sent stuff. So I got provided with the Kaleido Colorworks primary color set. It comes with 24 colors, cleaner and thinner, and I've started using it to make this hawk. It's very rare that I do any sort of video specifically featuring a product. I mean, I use the airbrushes that Gaahleri have sent me and Fengda have sent me, and I use all the supplies I'm provided. And I disclose that, these are things that are provided to me. But this thing has been sent to so many different people that I really wanted to just try something against stuff that I was already making, so I could really see whether or not I like this or not. Now, some details. This kit they've sent me is around £68. I'm going to assume that price is going to be discounted significantly at various points of the year because that seems to be a business model. And you can buy smaller sets and individual paints as well. They have several different sets, including car, mecha, metallics, and primaries. I got the primary set, but I really wish I'd had some of the mecha ones because they come with some of the military colors that would have allowed me to try other things. So I've gone for the Red Arrows because it was really easy for me to just do that from this set. Plus, I was already doing them anyway, as you can tell. These paints are pre-thinned, so you don't need to add anything to them, which is good. Does mean you'll go through bottles quicker than buying a bottle with thinner, but it also means that if you're like me and not particularly great with airbrushes, you're gonna have to do way less. You literally throw it in your airbrush, spray it, and it's done. And a little spoiler, but it does work like that. I'm pretty shocked because I've used other airbrush ready ones before I haven't found to be sort of that good. I've tried so many different ranges as well with their own thinners, and these have worked really nicely. So, I'm quite optimistic of these. But before we get too excited by these paints, we need to go and have a look inside the box of the Matchbox Hawker Siddeley BAE Hawk T1 in Red Arrow scheme. The Matchbox Hawk. I adore this box art. I miss this brand. I never really used it much as a kid, but I think it looks so fantastic. The artwork was just always gorgeous, and just something about the boxing looks spectacular. The sprue is quite simple, as you would expect from a Matchbox kit. I think people are overly reminiscent about how good these kits are, but they do go together well. They are designed more as a hybrid between a toy and a model than a dedicated scale replica. But you do normally end up with a plane that looks somewhat like the one you see flying in the sky. In fact, even the pilots look relatively good, though I shan't be using them. I do overall think that the sprue is relatively nice and put together, and the clear parts even look good considering their age. Something I didn't expect considering we still see some model manufacturers struggle to make clear transparent parts like these. Overall, the kit is very, very simple, and that reflects in the instructions too, which don't really show you really well where to put all the decals, and I'm glad we've moved on to sort of printed colour instructions instead, at least for the schemes and markings. The instructions are very simple and more of the quote-unquote exploded view that we are used to, particularly with older Hella and Airfix kits. And, well, this kit is really simple, and I think you could probably even put it together without instructions if you've built at least one Hawk before. The decals look like they may have aged quite poorly, but these still held up relatively well. Notice on the bottom where the white goes, there are black marks, and that's to show you where to cut it if you are pitting it with London gear down. Overall, not bad decals, and of course I won't be using the finished ones, at least in this build. Right, so now we've had a look in the box, you'll know that this kit is quite simple. In fact, compared to its contemporaries, it's going to have less surface detail and less accurate, well, tooling probably overall, just by the fact that it's a much older model. And I mean, Matchbox were never known for their super accuracy or high detail, but I've always wanted to build this kit. I love the box art of Matchbox and old Airfix kits, and I really wish we had more like this today. Even on the modern box arts of Red Arrows releases, they're so often sort of like hyper-realistic, and you don't get this lovely pop style that you get in these old watercolor or acrylic-based illustrations. I just really love them, and I'm really excited to build this, and I really hope I do it well. I have a lot of nostalgia for the old scheme of the Red Arrows too, and pretty much with the Red Arrows and Gaahleri old boxings, and obviously the old Airfix ones, they're like the only ways to get this old scheme. For some reason there's like no decal schemes for like the old Red Arrows. Someone please make them, because I will buy all of them. But yeah, it's kind of wild, but I really love this old scheme. I know it's retro, but yeah, it just warms my heart. So let's go and have a look at how I did building this kit. The build of this kit was really genuinely quite lovely, because I've built two Hawks in relatively quick succession for another larger Red Arrows project that we'll hopefully see not too long. But this one was very different to the other two. It built with sort of wings that go underneath rather than inside in like a little slot, and it's much more simple. As I said earlier in this video, it's much closer to a hybrid of a toy and model, something that you might actually play with rather than just a model to sit on the shelf. But I actually really like it. The cockpit itself is the standard tub with seats, and then it also has the control column, and that's kind of it. Quite nice, and you can just paint it black, or at least I did that in this case. Pop on some matte varnish on the non-reflective areas and you're pretty much good to go. Of course, the seats could have some extra detail added to them in the form of seat belts or even just an edge highlighting, but at this scale I'm normally quite happy with just a plain black cockpit. Putting it together was really simple and easy, and I just used my normal tweezers and glue. The tweezers are non-branded, they're just generic, and the glue is Deluxe Materials plastic glue, which I've been using fairly recently. I did use Revell's glue as well throughout this build, but yeah, I just like to let you know what I'm using. After that came the wings, and the wings come in two sections. So it comes with the top section and the bottom section, but the bottom section overhangs quite a lot. And the reason for that is it goes onto the bottom of the aircraft. It's not like it goes in with a slot or that it just goes entirely onto the bottom. It's sort of a half and half design. It's quite unique, but of course I use some tape to secure it all together before we actually get to that stage of popping it onto the bottom of the model. I use tape quite liberally, as you can tell. I then just stuck both sides onto the bottom of the model, and this is what I mean. You can build basically this whole aircraft in two halves, which is really quite fun. You can do that with a lot of models these days, but quite often the wings secure the overall fuselage together or go across the whole thing, so doing this half and half thing isn't as common. We then had to do the air engine intakes, and you just sort of squeeze the two parts together, which are really quite clearly instructed, though I did manage to get them on the wrong halves initially. But then once you've popped them together and stuck them onto the sides, the aircraft really starts to take shape. The only thing left to do after that is of course going to be the tail of the Hawk, which I think has become quite an iconic part of its silhouette because it's got a sort of, I think it's a 45-degree angle downwards, so it gives it a really unique shape, especially compared to other contemporary trainers. Now, for the air intake and for some other areas of the build, I did scratch the plastic with my little pliers or my tweezers, my plastic cutters, sprue cutters, there we go. How many things did I just say? And once I'd done that, I found it stuck a lot better. Now this is an uncommon and probably used in a lot of other craft as well, where you need to roughen the surface just to make sure it adheres properly. I don't know how much of a difference it really makes with plastic glue, because it sort of melts it rather than sort of creates a bond, but it did seem to help, although that could be a placebo effect. And here we are petting in those tail sections, and these ones do slot in, and again it's really obvious which side of these goes down because it either points up or points down, and if it's pointing up it's the wrong way round. It was then time for the landing gear, and the landing gear I also found quite easy with this kit, which shocks me because normally I hate landing gear. You all know that if you've seen a lot of these videos. You'll know it if you've seen me build the Alpha Jet, which I've built a couple of times. And well, overall, I didn't find this the worst. I don't think it's like the super easiest. It has sort of the main assembly, because I didn't quite put it all on camera unfortunately, but it's got the wheel covers, it's got the wheel that you pop onto sort of the main landing gear shaft, and then it's got like a little bit that sticks out, so like the angled piece that holds the landing gear in place, I guess probably acts as some form of structure, suspension, I'm not sure. But once you've got all that all in place, it does look really nice, and it's not the worst I've ever done. It's just kind of average. Now, I did have to put some weight in the front, because when I initially looked at I just popped it together without sort of gluing it whole together quite surprisingly well, and I did find that it started sitting on its tail, and I was a bit worried, so I decided to put some just fishing weights in. I'm not quite sure how much I put in the end. I always tend to go over rather than under, but once I had enough in, it did sit really nicely. I popped these in the nose, and I basically just shut it shut because I didn't think these were going to move. I do have one that's quite a bit loose and is rolling around a little bit, but most of them just seem quite snug in the front. I think I did pop a little bit of gluing glaze in, but yeah, I just made sure that it was definitely not going to be a tail sitter. Obviously with a polyscement all around the fuselage, once I'd got everything in place, I just squeezed it together, and well, I did use some tape. You're going to see me really struggle to put this on just by using one hand, but it wasn't that bad. This is just me just being quite silly. I should have just pre-cut some tape, but it went on honestly really easy, and that's kind of it. I just had to put the front landing gear in, which just pops in and done. Now that we've finished building, it's time to go into painting, and I'm going to preface this and say the first blast I had out of my airbrush, I forgot to hit record on my camera. I was sat in a Discord call with a fellow model maker and just was like, oh my god, let's try this out whilst we're on a call together, and forgot. So the first bit you're going to see is me painting the underside, and then you turn it over and the top side is mostly painted, but that's just because I forgot. Let's just go and have a look. So painting this, I chose to use a white primer, and the reason for this is because if you use a dark primer, quite often you will not get the bright vibrancy that you need for a aerobatic display team. This is something I've learned just from doing Warhammer, and I know that pigmentation is always, well, you never know with a new paint brand. So I went with the white primer, but I have actually got all three. I've got the black, grey and the white. The grey is the one I've got the most of, but I'm glad I bought the white for this one. For the primer, I just popped it in the airbrush and sprayed. I did probably do mine on too high a PSI, so some of it did dry as it went through. That's absolutely fine. I kind of screwed up on that, and I lowered it much later when I was doing my red and had way less issues. This is the first time for me using this paint though, so you know, it's all about experimentation. Now the primer dried really quickly, and I actually got this all painted pretty much in one session. For the red, I used K003 red, and I did a really little drop of K017 russet. Now on my airbrush, it was essentially, I did it by eye, but in the cup, it was like just to the point where it'd come out of the airbrush and was actually in the cup, a couple of millimeters deep, and then I did like 2-3 drops of the russet color, and that basically gave me the red that I wanted. That wasn't like so vibrant, it was like, you know, pop red, but it was like a really bright Red Arrows red. Now it went on super easy. After you put a primer down, this stuff just sticks. You can tell that they designed this with sort of Gundam and car modeling in mind, because it goes on so nicely. I've heard other people say that this is more like how lacquer paints work. I have no experience with them, so I don't know. I did have a couple of issues with this when I messed up and knocked the model, and when I was trying to fix some of the granulation that was caused by me having on a too high PSI. So I did have to go back and sand some bits down, reprime them, respray them, and to be honest, I probably didn't do the best job. That's on me, not on the paints. Because once it was just one solid red layer, oh my god, this looked incredible. It literally looks like a spray can. And I was on a call with Model Minutes at the time, and they said similar thing, which was just, it just goes on with one coat. It just looks like a spray can finish. And considering I've done some other hawks with spray cans, I have to agree. For full disclosure there, Model Minutes wasn't using the paints, they were just on a call with me as I was showing off that I'd got them and really enjoyed them.
From what you showed me just now, it looks like it's a rattle can. Or I wouldn't be able to tell that that wasn't something like a rattle can finish where you've just done one coat and it's just come out and it's done. And the fact that it dried almost as quickly as well. But you've managed to put it through an airbrush, which completely blows my mind. Like, I'm a massive fan of just trying to make your life as easy as possible. So why wouldn't you just get something that just does the job? And this looks like it's just done the job perfectly.
It's shocking how deep the finish is, considering it's pretty much just one coat, primer and paint. It seems ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy. I would so be tempted to get some of these myself just to see what they're like. And if it's a tricky color like red and potentially like yellows and whites as well, and you can just get one coat straight out of the bottle, just straight through the airbrush, and a smooth, even finish which dries really quickly, then why it's going to put other companies at risk, isn't it? Because let's face it, we've all had those experiences where we've had a red that we wanted to paint and it just takes forever, or it doesn't have the saturation, and if you can get it just in one bottle consistently every single time, that's amazing. I'm totally down for trying this at some point.
After I'd fixed what I did, I put on the gloss coat, and that's where I realised I really did have my PSI too high because it just didn't go on properly. But after I fixed my mistakes, I did it on a lower PSI, it went absolutely fine. It was then time to head on to decaling before I would give another coat of gloss. But before we look at that, I also did some brush painting on the wheels and in the cockpit. That's because I hadn't really bothered with the cockpit for this because it's so simple, so I knew I would just be painting black on. So I went ahead and just put the black on, and it went on with no issues whatsoever. In fact, that was the same for pretty much all of the paints that I've tried on various bits of sprue. I'm sure there will end up being some colours that don't work as well as others, but so far I am impressed with this paint and I think it worked really nicely. I then applied the matte varnish to the black areas so it was anti-reflective. Do I think this is going to make me change the varnish I use? For gloss, probably. I found the gloss varnish absolutely fine. For the matte varnish, probably not, because I don't think this is matte enough. I really like the ultra matte one I have already, but it's a perfectly acceptable varnish. The overall finish of the model I thought looked really nice, and even hand painting on the canopy, I found the paint just flowed really nicely, partly due to its pre-thinned nature. In fact, this is probably the easiest canopy I've ever painted, and I'm not exaggerating. It's one of the neatest and cleanest ones I've done. Do I fear how easy this would be to scratch off, like I would with a traditional paint? Yeah, a little bit, but I guess that's something I'll have to try on a wasted canopy at some point. Right, so the decals. The decals went on really nicely, and I'd say the gloss varnish definitely helped, as it always does. These paints are so gloss, I don't know whether you'd get away with just doing it without, but I always do it to be safe. Some of the decals did unfortunately rip, including some of the white segments, or some of the white segments just completely dissolved, so I did have to paint those in, but I found the white paint to match relatively well. You know, white doesn't always quite match white in these sort of situations. But it looks okay, and I'm quite happy with the result. I really love the scheme, and all the decals went on without a hitch. Some of the roundels are out of register, but to be honest, I expect that with an old kit, and I think it just kind of adds to the charm. Obviously, the surface detail of the kit is quite minimal, and I did look at doing a panel wash, and it may be something I add later. Two really quick things here. So I actually completely forgot that I used Gaahlerie's acrylic watermarker. So this entire plane basically is Gaahleri for all of the colours on here, which is amazing. And also right on the front of the plane is where the light is. And I did glue that on with some glue and glaze and the plastic part included. Right, so we've seen me build this now. And I guess we need to go and have a look at it popping off. But there are some thoughts on the paints. Probably not all positive, but we'll go into that in a second. But we really need to go and have a look at this, because I think this looks really nice, and it was a really quick, literally like an after work for 2 nights project. So let's go have a look at it popping off. Well, what did you think? Is it the best? No. And did I put the paint on too thick in several areas? Absolutely. But I think this turned out okay, you know, like it does look like a hawk. I'm quite proud of that. Yeah, it's not my best, but I think it's acceptable. But I guess we need to talk about the paints, because that was a big thing in this. So, I guess we'll start with the primers. I've only used the white one so far, but I found the coverage to be brilliant for a white primer. I've been using Tamiya's spray primer, and I've also used Humbrol and Revell's spray primers alongside using Life Color's airbrush primer. Well, it's not just an airbrush primer, but I've been using it in an airbrush. I have found white to be one of the worst primers, and to be honest, like Games Workshop Citadel one is the only one I've ever really found to be like really reliable. But this was good. Like, for a white primer, you normally get quite bad coverage, and this just worked. Honestly, consider me shook. This was really nice. As for the colours, these went on very differently, and I think, and again, I'm going to quote what they said when they were watching me spray it, what Modelman said was right, like, these go on like a spray can, and it's a very different style of airbrushing. There's way less faff involved, for one thing. You don't have to do anything with, you know, the actual paint. You just throw it straight in. And getting the right mixture can be really hard. Everyone always says, get a consistency like milk. And I know I'm not the only one who doesn't really know what that really feels like or looks like. It's just thicker than water. So having pre-mixed ones is really nice. I think it also keeps the cost level down for the occasional modeler. For someone like me who might build like, you know, like French February where I might do 4 French projects, maybe not the most accessible because I'm going to go through them a lot quicker. But for someone who just wants to paint like 1 thing or 2 things every couple of months, really good. It depends how well they last on the shelf, but so far they seem pretty reliable. The cleanup of these though, I will say hands down is the best I've had against Vallejo, Revell, Humbrol and Life Color, which is my main paint of use at the moment. I have never had such an easy cleaning experience with an airbrush. Obviously, I'm being transparent with you. I got these for free. I do have like an affiliate link with them where I earn money if you buy them, but Like, I try to always just be transparent and honest, and the cleanup on those has been fantastic. I don't know about how well it is compared to like other full airbrush ready paints. They probably are quite similar. But yeah, I found the cleaning on these really good, and it's something they promoted, so I'm assuming some R&D went into that. I will say these paints go on probably a bit thicker than usual, and that's probably why you get that one coat coverage, much more like a car paint, and that's kind of what they're targeted towards. I don't know how great these would be for like proper military because they're all quite glotty colours. I'd be really interested to see how Kaleido, well, Gaahleri, manage doing more military style colours, and if that's going to affect the formulation, because I would love to see these colours in like a Luftwaffe set or an RAF set or a modern European jet set and stuff like that, which is why I started buying Life Colour in the first place, because I thought that was such a great way for me to buy my paints and just have like a reliable, consistent experience. But I think if Gaahleri do military colours, that would be a game changer. So yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say this is the best thing since sliced bread. I think paint is a very personal experience. Some people are like so devoted to some brand over another. I'm very agnostic and just end up using whatever seems to work for me, which is why I ended up with Life Colour, which almost no one uses. And I've still got my entire wall of Life Colour. I am still going to use Life Colour, but I will be honest, if Gaahleri keep up this level of workmanship and these like, I don't know, really innovative products, then I could be sold. Now, to be really transparent, I'm still going to be using Life Colour paints at the moment, purely because I don't know if this range has enough coverage of the subjects that I do. I'm really interested to try this out with different things. So like, I'm looking at maybe buying a couple of different aerobatic teams and just try them out. I am really excited to do white planes, but use the primer and then the white paint on top, because I've avoided that like the plague, because I just cannot stand the idea of having to do white. And now I'm like, actually I can do that reliably and consistently, because I've had a Thunderbird set that I wanted to do for ages, and the idea of white has just terrified me, and now I'm just like, yeah, I can do that. So I'm really tempted to just sit down and do them all in one go at some point, because it'll be easy. So I think that's a sign that these paints are good, in my opinion. But I don't think they're at a point where you could replace your entire paint range with them, just because I don't think they have the colours and shades you would need without having to do a lot of custom mixing, which just isn't reliable. So I think this is a hold off until you know you can get what you need. If you're doing like cars and mechs though, you may already be ready for this. As for the plane, the Matchbox Hawk I think is delightful. The construction is unlike any of the other Hawks that I've built, and I really enjoyed it actually. It went together really quickly. It was very Matchbox. It wasn't the best kit, it had gaps, but you know what? I enjoyed it, and I've already looked at buying another one to build because I just enjoyed it. It was a fun little project to do. It took me no time at all, and it was nice to have very low pressure. I'm sad that the decals broke, and I'm praying at some point a manufacturer just makes the Red Arrows sort of history in decal form, because I've seen it for Partout de France, I've seen it for Il Frecce Tricolori by Italy themselves. So come on, like Airfix or Hanats, like with extra decal, just please someone make the history of the Red Arrows as a decal set, because they have so many nice and unique schemes. I just want to be able to build them all without having to buy an old kit and have the decals break. Obviously this kit is not the most detailed in the world, and I would not pay more than £10 for this kit. You're really paying for the Matchbox name and the experience of those legacy style kits. If you want to build this kit and just have just as much fun, but get a really detailed kit, I would probably say go for the Revell kit. And if you want to build one that's really easy to build, really fun to build, but doesn't quite have the same details in terms of like decals, then I would go for the Airfix kit. Yeah, I would honestly say if I had to buy or fly this kit, I would absolutely buy this kit. I think it is lovely. Well, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you've liked what you've seen here today, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and you can also like the video and leave a comment down below. Have you built the Matchbox haul? Or alternatively, have you bought Gaahleri new paint range from Kaleido? If you want to support the channel more, and that includes me being able to afford to buy new and interesting model kits, then you can become a channel member, which is like a monthly subscription. There's 2 separate levels, starter kit and advanced kit, and well, the only difference is the advanced kits get shouted out at the end of the video, but whatever you do, it really helps me out. If you want to join a lovely community of model makers, then make sure to join the Discord. The link is in the description down below. It's just a lovely forum style where you can share your latest projects and your finished builds. Well, that's going to do it for us. I'll see you later. Bye guys!
A shout out goes to all of my advanced kit level members, and that includes Bobby G, Bob and Genevieve Owlbridge, Charles Parker, Daphne Duck, David Barber, Taggers 365, Jeff's Dioramas, and the 2 longest supporters at advanced kit level, Explosive Water and Crazy Locha. Of course, a massive shout out goes to all of my channel and members at all levels. You help support this channel and keep me going.